Hello, everybody. Welcome to Between the Bumps Professional Wrestling Podcast, the pro wrestling podcast where we go between the bumps in the ring to discuss match quality, storylines, wrestling news, and even make predictions in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment. I'm your host, Christian Marrero. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Between the Bumps Professional Wrestling Podcast. We are having the Raw review show today because it is Tuesday, and that is what we do on Tuesdays. So let's get right into it because I have a lot to get to. Raw started off great. Raw started off with a really cool segment. So last week, they advertised a retirement ceremony for Rey Mysterio, and I did not talk about it on the podcast because of two reasons. One, I figured it was going to be a work. I figured that Rey Mysterio is probably not going to retire right now and that it is just going to play into the storyline. And two, I wanted to talk about it once I actually saw how it played out on screen. So that is what they opened Raw with Rey Mysterio's retirement ceremony hosted by none other than Seth Rollins. So Seth comes out, he cuts a promo, and he claims that Aleister Black is just confused and that he has no choice but to enlighten Black. And that this will all be very difficult for Rey, but Seth's gut feeling tells him that Rey will not be able to bring himself to formally retire, so he'll handle that formality for Rey. He says that Rey is too humble and too modest to call himself a legend, and that as a leader, it is up to him to appreciate Rey and the sacrifice Rey made. He says that Rey was sacrificed for the greater good of Raw. He was chosen as a sacrifice. And then he calls Rey the greatest luchador ever and a kind and generous man, and says that in his darkest hour, Rey sacrificed himself so that Rollins can be the man he is today, and so it is up to appreciate him. So he shows a video package of Rey Mysterio's career, and it was a legit good video package of just all the accolades he's had. But of course, the video package ends with Rollins' attack on Mysterio a few weeks ago. And then he calls Rey Mysterio a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he, like the asshole he is, says that he would be honored to induct him. Now at this point, the crowd, quote unquote crowd, the NXT crowd that they had in the audience, was just yelling, "You're crazy, you're never gonna induct him." It was just such an asshole thing, like, to say that. And so Aleister Black interrupts the segment and he attacks Rollins. And then that's how the segment ends. They cut to commercial. Then when we return from commercial, we're having the first match of the night. It's Aleister Black versus Seth Rollins. And there is one weird thing I do want to talk about here. It's that the commentators constantly referred to Mysterio as Aleister Black's mentor, which makes no sense. Like, Rey Mysterio was not Aleister Black's mentor. They've just tag teamed a couple of times together. And they got thrown off a roof by Baron Corbin. They're not, Aleister Black is not Rey Mysterio's pupil. But other than that, this match was actually really good. It really was. Of course it's going to be good. Aleister Black and Seth Rollins are just awesome in ring. So it's weird because Black moved at a very quick and hard-hitting pace. That's how he worked. He worked his martial arts stuff. But Rollins kind of changed things up here. Rollins was working very slow, very methodical. And I'm like, that's intentional. That has to be intentional because when Rollins was a face all through last year, he was constantly working this high pace, this really quick pace type of style with just a bunch of spots. But here he was working a very slow, methodical heel type pace. And that just made Rollins and Black gel very well together and work very well. So anyways, at some point, Aleister falls to the outside and Murphy and Austin Theory are heading to attack him. But Humberto Carrillo comes out with a steel chair to protect Aleister. And, you know, Aleister has a very unique wrestling style. I'm a big fan of it. I love how he mixes that Muay Thai kickboxing with professional wrestling. I think he makes it flow really well. So at one point, Rollins goes to hit a frog splash on Aleister, but Aleister gets the knees up, and like, Rollins hit clean. It was one of the stiffest frog splashes I've ever seen. So then they cut to commercial. After the commercial break, Seth hits the frog splash successfully. And after hitting that frog splash, Rollins goes for the curb stomp, but Aleister dodges it and reverses it into an armbar with a really cool roll through transition. Like, it was a really cool reversal. I've never seen something quite like that from the stomp specifically. So I thought that was really cool. It was very fluid. Like, it looked really good. So then Rollins tries to springboard off the top ropes, but Aleister catches him with a running knee. That spot looked just brutal. It was really well done. And then Black starts lifting Rollins for the Black Mass, but Murphy and Theory cause a distraction, and Carrillo breaks up the distraction. He comes and he pulls Murphy or Theory off of the apron, and they attack Carrillo. They attack Carrillo on the outside, being Theory and Murphy, and Aleister wins because Seth Rollins tried to get a roll-up on him, but he reverses the roll-up with a roll-up reversal pinfall, and he gets the win. So Aleister Black wins, and then after the match, Rollins and his posse attack Aleister Black and Carrillo. They make Aleister watch Rollins curb stomp Carrillo the whole time. Aleister screaming, "Ah, you're a coward, fight me instead." And then they hold, Murphy and Theory hold Aleister down for another curb stomp, and he gets curb stomped. It was a great match, a great segment to end the match, and it was really a great start to Raw. It was a fun way to start Raw. I think that it was a really good beginning. I enjoyed the segment very much so, and I see this feud having a pretty good payoff. I hope that it does. I hope it's not something just completely cheesy and we just pay it off with a shitty tag team match. Like, I hope that, you know, Aleister and Rollins get to pay this off on a bigger stage and they get to continue playing this, because they have really good chemistry. They really do. So then anyways, we move into a backstage interview with Angel Garza and Zelina Vega, and they start by recapping Garza's victory, his controversial victory over Kevin Owens last week. And Angel Garza says that everything is fair in matters of war and in matters of love. And that in matters of, and I quote, competition and seduction, one must always be one step ahead. And then Zelina cuts into the interview and says his victory was not controversial. His victory was triumphant. And Garza then says if others aren't willing to do what he did, they must not want it as bad as he does. So to end the interview, Angel Garza gives Charlie Caruso a rose, and Zelina Vega just takes it from her and rips it apart. And like, when he gave her the rose, Charlie acted like it was the greatest thing ever, and then when Zelina rips it apart, her face was just like Charlie Caruso did a really good job of selling that. It cracked me up. Then we had Shawn Michaels on video addressing the Edge versus Orton match that's happening at Backlash. He goes on to say that there is a lot of pressure on them because of the standard they've set for the match by calling it the greatest match ever. And then he goes on to list all the great matches he's had, and he even says, if I stand here listing all of my great matches, we're going to be here all night. And he says that they've set the stage for the greatest match ever, and he thinks they can deliver. And contrary to Ric Flair last week, he predicts that Edge will be the winner. So, that's fine. You know, we had the heel Ric Flair supporting the heel Randy Orton, and now we have babyface HBK supporting babyface Edge. So, I'm not against it. Whatever you want to do to get them over. So, then we move into a backstage segment with Lana and MVP. So, Lana goes up to MVP and says, you're getting in your husband's head, you're driving us apart. And MVP responds by saying, look, I have actual work to do, unlike you. I have to go prepare for my match with Drew McIntyre later. And that he doesn't want to be involved in Lana's attention-seeking drama. So Lana responds by calling MVP a leech and telling him that he's just trying to revive his washed-up career on the back of Bobby Lashley. And then MVP responds by saying, "Wouldn't that make two of us?" And Lana slaps him for it. And so then we have an in-ring interview with Apollo, conducted by Caleb Braxton. Apollo says he feels appreciation, humility, and that being the United States champion is still surreal to him. And Apollo will choose his opponent tonight to defend his title against. And Apollo chooses Kevin Owens for his first defense. Kevin enters the ring, and he congratulates Apollo. Kevin says that he feels this opportunity is coming from pity, though. And Apollo says, no, it's not about pity, it's just about respect. And Kevin then responds by saying, well, I feel bad still because your first title reign is going to be a short one. I was not expecting KO. I guess I should have been expecting Kevin Owens just because he's involved with Angel Garza and Andrade and all that. But I really wasn't, and it was a great choice. So then we have Apollo Crews and Kevin Owens for the United States Championship. It was very fast-paced and very hard-hitting. Both of these men are awesome in the ring. They really, really are. So they start the match by chain wrestling for a very short time before just moving into spot after spot after spot. So at one point during the match, Kevin Owens lands a low blow inadvertently on Apollo. And the ref asks Apollo if he can continue. Like, can you go on? Apollo says yes. And after this, the match just turns into a slugfest because Apollo seemingly feigned that low blow to bait Owens. And the match then continues with a very brawl type style before transitioning into more big spots. KO goes for a swanton, but Apollo gets his knees up. And that's when this match just turned sour, because Angel Garza and Andrade attack Crews and Owens, and it ends their match. This match was awesome. It really was, up until it ended that way. That DQ finish is just used in WWE way too much, and they hurt really great matches like this. Like, they really do make these matches suck. So the match is thrown out and restart as a tag team match between Owens and Apollo against Garza and Andrade. And, like, here's the thing. All four of those men are super talented. They really are. But I'm so sick of WWE doing this, like, teasing a match and then just restarting it as a tag team match after a DQ finish due to interference, that, like, I could not get into this match. I really couldn't. I didn't even take notes for it because, like, I just could not get interested in it because it left such a sour taste in my mouth. So anyways, Apollo pins Andrade for the victory. I really would have just preferred had they let Kevin Owens and Apollo have a match. It would have established Apollo as a good champion to beat Kevin Owens. But more than that, like, these finishes just happened too much. And I knew the match, as soon as they came out, I knew the match was going to get reset as a tag team match. And it just sucked. It just sucked. It really did. The match was amazing up until that point. And I know that all four men are talented and they have the capabilities to put on a really good tag team match. But if you just want to do a tag team match, just do a tag team match. Don't start it out as a championship defense with Apollo Crews and Kevin Owens, because then it's like you're giving me a little bit of the cookie, but right as I'm about to bite, you snatch it away. And that's just terrible. Anyways, let's move on. So we have a backstage interview with Asuka following this, and Asuka enters the interview humming her theme. Just she's just pretty much humming her theme to herself. And she says that she will take the bully out at Backlash. And then she goes on to say, Asuka is always better. Charlotte stays the same, and the Empress never bows to anyone. So that's to promote the match that she's going to have with Charlotte Flair later on. And then we moved in to the segments that I have been very torn about in the past few weeks. It is the Viking Raiders versus the Street Profits in bowling. Ivar slams the bowling ball into Angelo Dawkins' stomach as if it was a basketball. Like, he just slams it. And Eric bowls a strike to start the game, as does Ivar. So they're doing very well. And the Profits are getting repeated gutter balls. So A woman comes out and brings drinks for them, flirts with Ivar a little bit. The drink that they have is goat milk, which we find out after Angelo takes a sip of it and spits it out, and it is revealed to be goat milk. So then Montez hits Angelo in the shin with his ball, with the bowling ball, and Ivar just reaches into the ball return and pulls out a turkey leg. So then Ivar decides he's hungry and he goes to raid the snack bar, and they almost get kicked out of the bowling alley by the lady who brought them the drinks earlier, but she says that she's gonna give them a pass because Ivar is cute, Eric not so much, which is kind of like the running joke they've had in these segments. It's weird. So anyway, the Profits tell the dude working the counter that they want the smoke. And so the lights drop, some music hits, and a fog machine starts throwing out smoke, and magically the Profits begin to bowl extremely well. And the Viking Raiders, start failing. So to end the game, Eric takes Ivar, who is holding the bowling ball, and literally bowls Ivar. And the Viking Raiders end up winning with a score of 131 to 130. And I pretty much have the same sentiment about this segment that I had last week about last week's segment. The segments themselves are fun. Individually, they are fun because they're so ridiculous, and these two teams are actually really good at being funny. But I'm torn. I am still so very torn because this is literally the Raw Tag Team Championship scene right now. Like, you have the tag team champions and the number one contenders for those titles bowling and golfing and playing basketball and axe throwing, and it's just, I just want to see good matches out of them. Like, if they didn't have the titles, I would be way more behind this. But they have the titles. This is title implications, and it's just a stark reminder that WWE will never ever take tag team wrestling seriously. So, I don't know. The individual segment itself is funny. It gets a chuckle out of me. But, at the same time, it's just to the point where it's like, I want to get behind these segments and I want to just enjoy these segments for what they are. But in the back of my mind, like, I'm constantly reminded, hey, this is the Raw Tag Team Championship scene. So that just, it really bothers me. It really, really does. And I'm torn because, like I said, the individual segments are good and they're funny and they're performed well, but I don't know, it just really bothers me that this is the Raw Tag Team Championship scene, so I'm very torn. Anyways, then we move into another match with Billie Kay facing Nikki Cross. And before the match, the Iconics and Bliss and Cross are all yelling at each other backstage. And this was actually not a bad match. It was slower paced than the others, but it was not very long, so it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't hard to get through at all. Billie Kay wins by pinfall after hitting a Uranagi, which, I'm glad because the Uranagi is a really devastating looking move, and no one ever wins with the Uranagi, so it was cool that someone did. And both of these women have a very old school feel to them in the way that they wrestle, and that makes them stand out nowadays, because nowadays everyone has this lucha type style, where it's all fast paced, spot after spot after spot after spot after spot. But the fact that these women were wrestling kind of an old school style, hitting elbow drops on each other, just attacking each other, it made them stand out. It was a fine match. It was not the best match of the night, but it wasn't terrible. And so Billie Kay wins by pinfall, and so we assume that now they're going to move into a tag team title shot against the women's tag team champions, Bliss and Cross. So I'm fine with that. I'm cool with us establishing the women's tag team titles. It's certainly being treated better than the Raw tag team titles. So then we have a backstage interview with Drew McIntyre. And he says it's been 9 weeks since he won the WWE Championship, and that he's not worried about Lashley during his match with MVP tonight. And he claims that he will take MVP to Claymore Country for a second time. And then we have the actual addressing of his injury from Rey Mysterio. So Rey Mysterio is on video, and he is addressing what Seth Rollins did to him. And he goes on to say that for a Messiah, Seth carries a lot of negativity with him. And that he being Rey, was not chosen by some higher power. He was just attacked by Seth Rollins, who's being an asshole. And so Dominic, Rey's son, interrupts, and he says, look, Rollins isn't a Messiah. Rollins is barely human. And someone from our family needs to deal with him. And so Rey tells him, hey, calm down. Let me deal with this. And then Rey goes on to say, because he tells Samoa Joe, who was conducting the interview with him, look, I know what everyone wants to know is, everyone wants me to address my status. But instead of giving us a clear answer, all he says is, damn you, Seth Rollins, damn you. Because my wife, my son, my daughter, they were watching when you did that to me. So damn you for hurting me, and damn you for putting my family through what you put them through. And he tells Seth, look, I'm a man of forgiveness, but I will never forgive you for putting my family through that. And so Rey walks away, and he tells Dominic to come with him. But Dominic stays for a second, and he tells Rollins, you're a man of scripture, right? Well, an eye for an eye. And that's how the segment ends. Good segment. It was a really good segment. You know, Rey so very easily garners sympathy. It's so easy to want to get behind Rey Mysterio. It's so easy. He's such a good babyface. And in the year 2020, that is so hard. It's so hard to just legitimately want to get behind a babyface nowadays, because all the heels are all the cool characters. But Rey is just a natural at it. He really is. So then Nia Jax has a promo in ring. And, okay, context. 2 weeks ago, Nia Jax attacked Kairi Sane backstage. But then Asuka came and attacked Nia backstage. So Nia cuts a promo, and she says that she did not start this, and to not believe the hype, and she made some slightly racist mocking of the Japanese language. And it was slightly racist. Not like outwardly racist, but just a little racist. And then she says Asuka was just gifted the title because of hormones, because Becky Lynch went and got pregnant. And then she goes on to say, I'm not the villain, I'm the victim. And then she calls Asuka a charlatan, which sounded weird. And as Simon Miller would say, nobody talks like that, especially not Nia Jax. Like, that was the one weird thing about this promo. But it wasn't a bad promo. It really wasn't. It was by the books. It wasn't like an amazing run home and tell your friends about it type promo, like what you get from Edge and Randy Orton each week. But it wasn't terrible. Other than her calling Asuka a charlatan. That was weird. So then we have a segment showing R-Truth winning back the 24/7 championship because Rob Gronkowski was recording a TikTok dance. R-Truth came, rolled him up. R-Truth is a new 24/7 champion. Whatever, you know. That's just what that title scene is nowadays. So then we move into the actual match between Nia Jax and Kairi Sane. And Kairi just comes out firing on all cylinders. She drop kicks Nia, and Nia begins to easily overpower her. But when Nia goes for a Samoan drop, Kairi turns it into a sleeper hold. And I was almost like convinced, like, oh man, is she about to win by submission on Nia Jax? But of course not. Kairi begins using axe kicks on the shoulder of Nia Jax. And she hits her with a back fist before being caught with a headbutt. And then Nia Jax goes to slam Kairi, but Kairi reverses it into a DDT. And then she hits the sliding knee on Nia, but when she goes for a baseball slide on the outside, Kairi gets caught and gets thrown into the steps. And then Nia hits a leg drop on Kairi, gets the pinfall. Asuka comes out to confront Nia, but Nia just leaves. They don't share any words, nothing. It was fine. You know, I figured it was going to go like that. It was a lot less, like, Kairi got in a lot more offense than I thought she would have. But it's fine. It's not bad. I really don't have any other critique on it. It's whatever. It is what it is. So, then Randy Orton responds to Edge's promo last week. And he tells Edge, look, I've been watching the WWE Network, I've been watching The Last Ride, WWE Chronicle 24, and the one common thing in all of this is that Ric Flair is regarded as the greatest ever. However, last week, Ric Flair came on and said that I am the greatest ever, and you, Edge, have said the same. And he refers to the fact that Edge said that he does not have any passion for the business. He says, look, you claim that I don't have a passion for this. And you're right. You're right. And you can't stand the fact that I have accomplished far more than you ever did by just half-assing it. So now Orton is playing to the fact that the crowd constantly say he puts no effort, he's boring. And he says, yeah, well, I might be boring and I put no effort, but I still win championships. I am still one of the most decorated people in WWE history. And then he goes on to say that at Backlash, he will prove that he is better than Edge. It was a great promo. Like, it's so easy to forget how great Randy Orton is at talking. Like, Randy Orton is just awesome at cutting promos. He really, really is. So then we move on into the match that I was anticipating more than anything. Charlotte versus Asuka, champion versus champion. And Charlotte cuts a promo before the match to promote the match she's going to have this Sunday against Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley at TakeOver in Your House. And then she goes on to say that she wants one of the people in the crowd to stand up to her so she can make them bow down too. Then she starts putting over Asuka. She says, look, Asuka's the first Women's Royal Rumble winner. She has the longest undefeated streak in WWE history, and that she is a Grand Slam champion. And then she goes on to say she did all that because she wants to be like the Queen. Asuka then makes her entrance to interrupt. And the match was great. If you have ever seen Asuka versus Charlotte Flair anytime before this, you know they are capable of putting on just an amazing match. They just have a great chemistry, and this match was really cool because it felt like a fight. Like, it was just submission after submission, and when they weren't going for submissions, they were hitting each other. It was a great match. The ending was just awful. It was awful. It was awful. It was the second disqualification finish of the night. Like, that's 2 DQs in one night, and it's during the 2 best matches on the card. Like, the only good match that we got to see start to finish was Aleister Black versus Seth Rollins. And that's really annoying. That is really annoying. Like, you gotta, WWE, stop booking yourself into a corner. If you can't choose who is going over on any given night, don't book the match. I am so sick of great matches being ruined by DQ finishes. It is annoying. It really just leaves such a sour taste in the mouth of the fans. I promise you, it is not the way to go. You offered 2 great matches tonight in the form of Kevin Owens and Apollo Crews and Charlotte versus Asuka. But then you ruined both of them with DQ finishes. It is infuriating, especially because both matches were so good before the finish. So I can't even get behind the match because the finish leaves such a sour taste in your mouth. Great match, terrible ending. That's as simple as I can put it. So then we have a backstage interview with Lana. And Charlie Caruso asks Lana if she thinks Bobby asking Lana not to be at ringside was actually MVP's idea. And then Lana goes on to say, look, I don't know about that. But Bobby never said anything about me going out during MVP's match. So she's just kind of being a bitch. But whatever. It's fine. So then we move into the main event. Drew McIntyre versus MVP. Bobby Lashley, oddly enough, comes out before MVP. Not with MVP, but before MVP. And he stays ringside for the match. So MVP makes his entrance. Drew makes his entrance. And then Alana comes out after Drew. And this visibly annoys Lashley and MVP. So MVP is distracted by Lana's presence, and McIntyre just attacks him to start the match. And Drew just dominates the match, really. There was a few spots where MVP got in some offense, but very little. So the part where MVP gets his offense is because McIntyre is distracted by Lashley on the outside. So MVP throws him into the ring post and then into the plexiglass. And then he delivers a big boot in the ring, but McIntyre still kicks out at 1. That's McIntyre's new thing to make him look dominant. You know, he always kicks out at 1. He's not even letting you get a 2 fall. So then Drew does this crazy flip over the top rope, kind of Undertaker-esque, except instead of just diving, he hits a flip onto Lashley and MVP. And it's at this point that I remember Drew McIntyre is a massive, massive human being. So, like, props to him, man. He's so athletic. So, he hits it on Lashley and MVP on the outside. He takes out Lashley, throws MVP back in the ring. He hits MVP with the Claymore, and he wins. It was pretty much a squash match, as it should have been. This should have been a squash match. Like, you can't sell me on the fact that MVP can be actual competition to Drew McIntyre, but they didn't try. They made it a squash match, and it was good. It was really good. Lana looked very pleased when MVP got kicked and lost. So, Lashley comes into the ring, and he logs Drew in the full Nelson as Raw goes off the air. Like, he logs Drew in the full Nelson, and boom, Raw goes off air. So, we don't really see how it played out. Overall, good episode of Raw. Like, I do have issues with the DQ finishes, but other than that, it was a really solid episode. The matches were all really solid. I would give it a good 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. Like, the 2 DQ finishes really bothered me, but other than that, I thought it was a good show. I really did. I'm still torn between the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits segments. I don't think I'm ever not going to be torn about that. But, you know, the individual segments themselves are funny, like I've said. Drew McIntyre is still being treated like a dominant, badass babyface, and he's a great choice for WWE champion, so that's really good. I'm really happy about that. Overall, this was a good episode of Raw. It was not bad at all, and I'm nowhere near as critical of it as I was critical of Smackdown last week. This was good. It was a good episode. It went by really easily. Because, you know, 3-hour shows are hard, especially nowadays. 3-hour shows are hard, but this one didn't feel like it really dragged on all that long. In fact, when they went off the air, for the first time in a long time, I was surprised. I was like, wow, Raw is already over? And Raw has not made me feel that way in a very long time. So the ending segment was great. I love the fact they're using Bobby Lashley as a main event talent right now. I don't want him to win the title, as I've said before, but just him contending for the title. And if he can put on a really killer match with Drew McIntyre at Backlash, that'll be all I need. That'll be all I need, and that'll be all Bobby needs to be elevated to that level of like, hey, this guy is a threat. Because, like, Bobby Lashley, I've said it before, I don't know what it is about WWE, but they always get Bobby Lashley wrong. Like, they always get Bobby Lashley wrong. They never can seem to book him properly. And that's insane because, one, he doesn't even look like a real person sometimes. He literally looks like an action figure that was carved by the gods. And he's super talented. If you've seen his work in Impact or TNA, whatever you want to call it, if you've seen his work outside the WWE, you know that, hey, Bobby Lashley is very, very talented. Especially as a heel. Like, as a heel character, Bobby is very talented, and he's very good at delivering. So, I don't know why Vince McMahon can't seem to book Bobby right. Like, you would look at Bobby Lashley and just think, like, that would be one of Vince McMahon's favorite people on the roster. Just stereotypical Vince McMahon pleasantries with Bobby Lashley because he's jacked, he's mean looking, but for some reason Vince can never just get him right, and it baffles me. It really does baffle me. But I'm just glad that Bobby is finally being transitioned into a main event spot. I think him and Drew have the capabilities to put on an insane match at Backlash. Like, I really do, because they're both so hard hitting and they're both so physical that I think their match is actually going to be really good, and I'm actually very excited for it. So this was a good episode of Raw. The ending has me more excited for Backlash, And that's what these shows are supposed to accomplish as we're building towards a pay-per-view and as we're winding down to that pay-per-view. So, I'm very pleased with Raw this week. I've been critical about the 2 DQ finishes. Those really they sucked. Like, there's no other way of saying it. It sucks that WWE does that. But, overall, Raw was a great episode. And Raw's been delivering these past few weeks. Like I said, I think Drew McIntyre as WWE is the best choice right now. As WWE champion. My bad. I think it's the best choice. I really do. I think he's carrying the company well. I think he is believable as a champion. And they're just booking him right. They really are. They're doing a very good job with him. So I'm happy with this episode of Raw. I really am. It was a good episode. Easy to get through, easy to digest. Not much else I can say about it, guys. So, yeah. I would implore that you go watch Charlotte versus Asuka before the DQ finish, because that was a really cool thing. And go watch anything that Charlotte and Asuka have done together. Their match at WrestleMania 33, I believe it was. Maybe 32? No, I think it was 33. But their matches together are almost always amazing. Like, they really are. Like, they are amazing. Those two women just gel together so perfectly. So, I would implore you to go check out some of their stuff together. Like I said, Seth Rollins and Aleister Black have a great feud going on at the moment, and it was an amazing start to Raw. Like, honestly, objectively, that was the best match, because not only was it a really good match, but it wasn't hindered by a DQ finish, which the other two great matches on the card were. So, it was a good episode of Raw. It was really good, and there's not much else I can say about it, guys. So, I'm going to sign off here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the videos. I put up 4 podcasts a week, so there's going to be content, a plethora of content. There's going to be content galore on this channel. Every week we're going to have multiple podcasts. Some weeks we will have 5 podcasts when there are pay-per-views. So a week from Sunday, or I guess a week from Monday, we will be having the Backlash review. So yeah, it was good. You know, it was really good, and just stay tuned, guys, because I'm going to keep throwing wrestling content at you. So like I said, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the podcast. Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your grandma. Even if your grandma doesn't care about wrestling, tell her anyways, because I really appreciate the support, and let's just have a good time, guys. I'll catch you later, and that's it. Like, share, and subscribe. Well, guys, this has been Between the Bumps Professional Wrestling Podcast, the pro wrestling podcast where we go between the bumps in the ring to discuss match quality, storylines, wrestling news, and even make predictions in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment. I'm your host, Christian Marrero. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll catch you later.